Baker, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to get your take on what's your outlook on the M&A space?
Well, 2012 and 13 have actually been fantastic years in M&A in our sectors and at our side of the market. Our firm had its best 2 years in history in those 2 years. 2014, we think will be more of the same. Not necessarily the huge fire hose that many people are hoping for in terms of M&A volume, but continued confidence in the market will probably lead to some increased volume and deal sizes as well.
Are there more, some sectors that are more attractive than the others?
There's lots of sectors that are more attractive in terms of M&A activity. There are a few that jump out within the telecom, media, and technology space, which is where I spend my time. Cable is the obvious answer. The Liberty Media attempted acquisition through Charter of Time Warner Cable has led to a little bit of a freeze in the market. The values had already traded up quite a bit on activity in 2012 and 13, and the market's kind of waiting to see what happens with the Charter and Time Warner potential transaction, and I think once that's resolved, you'll see a lot of increased activity.
So are you, you sound like you're very optimistic about 2014?
Extremely optimistic, yeah, especially in the cable and telecom space.
Okay. Any other space that you think?
Generally around big data, we're seeing a huge increase in the amount of data that's transmitted over telecom infrastructure systems, and so businesses that are created or exist to handle that data, data centers, metro fiber businesses, cloud computing, all of those things are seeing huge upticks in values and in activity and in revenue, and I think you'll see M&A activity increase as well.
Why do you think the TMT space has been such a stable? There are always big transactions in this space, and you can't say that for everybody.
Well, I think that the industry is transitioning pretty aggressively. So you have old stalwarts, the old line media and telecom companies who continue to do the same thing but maybe have declining top line growth, and they're seeking to use the excess cash that they have to get into new businesses. So you're seeing both activity on a large scale where scale really matters. So cable, landline, telecom, wireless. These are very large cap businesses trying to achieve scale. And the other end of the spectrum, you see technology businesses, which is where those businesses are trying to transition, and they're doing a lot of small cap tuck-in transactions. And then in addition, in those sectors, you have companies like Google who have huge reserves of cash seeking to do really interesting things. So there's a lot of different ways to play that space, and I think whether the market is up or down, you're still going to see activity there.
How are the private equities playing this space?
Private equity has had a lot of money in traditional telecom media for a long time. We've been patiently waiting for them to exit those investments, and it's taking longer than I think any of us hoped or thought. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they've got lots of other good alternatives available to them. The portfolio companies that private equity funds are trying to liquidate can look to the IPO market, which has been hot, even though that some of the companies have traded poorly post-IPO. It's been a good exit mechanism for private equity portfolio companies. In addition, we've seen a lot of companies try to sell, but choose not to, and the private equity funds have just recapped. So as QE starts to wind down, I think you'll see interest rates go up and that opportunity be less available to the private equity funds, and maybe more merger and acquisition opportunities or activity on the heels of that.
So we're in New York right now, and New York has been called Silicon Alley over the past few years.
Yeah.
I personally don't know why,
Yeah.
but I mean, I see there are a lot of tech startups. Do you see there are more technology transactions from New York that are, New York area, tri-state area? Yeah,
I think so. On the telecom, on the technology side especially, 5-10 years ago, there was a lot of money made in these sectors, and a lot of it came out of private equity funds in New York as well as the Valley. And some of those executives have migrated back to New York or stayed in New York in order to start their next startup, and they've found access to early stage capital to be maybe not as good as in Silicon Valley, but probably better than anywhere else in the country. So we're seeing a lot of really cool companies that are growing up here and incubating, and we're working hard to sell them to some of the bigger companies now.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for doing an M&A deal in this space, TMT space?
The biggest challenge I think is the opportunity for sellers to recap the business. And just like it's cheap capital for buyers of businesses, it's also cheap capital for sellers to pay their owners back dividends and not sell the businesses. So we're seeing a real buildup in supply and no opportunities to actually buy companies. So once QE starts to wind down, I think you'll see interest rates rise and that start to go away a little bit.
When do you think QE is going to start?
Boy, I'm not. It's not really my business
Right.
to guess those things.
It could be
but
today. It could be tomorrow.
I think everyone in my industry is expecting that that's going to start to happen very, very shortly, and at least by the beginning of 2014. And how quickly it happens, we'll see.
At what rate for like, you know, because right now capital is like the cost of borrowing is nearly zero.
Yeah.
At what point would you say it's normal again?
Yeah, without guessing a number, I think what I'll say is that most of my clients anticipate that even as it goes up, it's still going to be at historical lows. So it's still going to be fairly cheap, and it's no matter what happens in 2014, it's not likely to be at levels that are going to dampen M&A activity.
Okay, thank
Great.
you so much.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.